courage is. Courage is so many things. As we take that nice deep breath in together, know that you have entered into this morning this place that is unconditional love, and that we come here to release the best of who we are, to unleash that spark of divinity that is living within each and every person here in this room and all over the world. Knowing that we come here to express that divine spark. Perhaps some of us because we are tired of living in conditions or experiences that no longer serve our highest and best. Because Ahava is an intentional community, our intention is to step up and support the world in becoming more love. To support the world in creating a world that works for everyone. And because of that, because we are an intentional community, and because you are here this morning, the world is changing as I speak. Because we've set our intention. And here's the thing to remember is that if you are not in a place of transformation right now, if things are not happening the way you want them to happen, hang on, hold on. Because the more you continue to open up to expressing the divine, the more the world will support you in becoming and expressing the divine. Because this is your journey, although we are in it together, this is your individual journey, it's my individual journey to express the highest and best of myself. The thing is, because of this, because behind and back of all evolution, you see, there's an inner power, an inner radiance that calls us forth, which pushes the unfoldment of life. It's sort of like spring, as it pushes those plants upward. And it doesn't matter, it's from the itty-bitty tiny atoms to the great and magnificent planets. Everyone must be ordained to their perfect expression. The core of that inner radiance that is being called forth to expand and be the breath of the one. This is how spirit experiences itself, is through each and every person. And so we are indeed the breath of the one source, of the holy. And so what we need to remember and always cling to and always embody is that as we breathe, we are breathing the divine. And we are breathing out and in the divine. And so we get to choose how we wish to express that. Your task is to be that ripe condition that can expand and be the divine radiance, that inner pattern that already lives within you that is being called forth. As with the changing seasons, so too our changing experiences and how we choose to live life in and through and as spirit. So this is when we discover this, when we embody this, this is when we become that sacred offering. And it is from this place that we begin to rise above and work with any conditions or experiences that we may be having. As Oliver Wendell Holmes said, a mind once stretched by a new idea can never go back to its original dimensions. So we're here to stretch our mind as well as our heart and our soul to begin to embody the truth of who we really are, that sacred offering of love. You know, this month we've been talking about the inner life, and we have covered several topics, including seeing God or the divine in everyone. And the first week, Reverend Rainbow talked about love. loving ourselves and loving ourselves deeply and embodying the idea that, yes, love is always the answer. And then I talked about, pause and find the cause. And in order to pause and then look at a cause, you must first accept the whole of self, the whole of who you are, the parts that you like and the parts that you don't like so much. Because once you move into acceptance, and that's what this is, then you get to choose. You get to choose what you might want to change, not because of the influence of others and what they think you should change in your life, but simply because you are working on ways to improve and expand the quality of your life. And last week, Reverend Rainbow talked about forgiveness and the real work that forgiveness takes. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that we all work on, if we choose, for the rest of our lives. And this week, we're talking about the ultimate fear buster. I used to work in a band called Buster, so. The ultimate fear buster, which is love. John Lennon said that there are two basic motivating forces, fear and love. When we are afraid, we pull back from life. When we are in love, we open to all that life has to offer with passion and excitement, and there's that word acceptance again. Love and fear are seemingly opposite emotional states, and yet they also seem to have a close relationship to each other. On the surface, love is a positive emotion that fosters a connection between people, whether they are parents or lovers or friends or family of any kind, even a community. Fear, on the other hand, supposedly does exactly the opposite. For example, when we fear something or someone, we want to do anything other than connect with that individual that we fear or situation or experience or object, right? In contrast, we want to stop the fear from inhabiting our bodies, and we will do whatever we can to avoid the individual or the situation. Yet, love often gives rise to fear. And fear has been known to give rise to love as well. Why can such apparently opposite emotions give birth to each other, and what is the connection that keeps them alive? I read something the other day about love and fear being the only emotions we as human beings are able to express. All the other emotions are just subcategories of love and fear. For example, with love, we have the opportunity to experience joy and peacefulness and happiness and forgiveness, to mention a few. On the other hand, fear tends to reflect hate and guilt and prejudice and anger and so on and so on and so on. Love and fear cannot coexist. Where one is, the other cannot be. At the risk of opening a can of worms here, I have to say I don't agree with the idea that where one is, the other cannot be. The suggestion is that fear is something evil that can be pushed aside by pure, uplifting forces of love. It says you're not doing right if you're feeling fear. You're not trying hard enough to find love. That love is like some wildfire that dominates and burns away everything in its path. And once you've mastered this, your life will be one of unicorns and sunsets over calm ocean views. Right? So I guess I am challenging this idea, and instead I embrace the concept of fear in my life as it coexists with love. You can think of it like yin and yang. Fear and love, in my opinion, provide balance and keep us on a path of self-growth. My limited experience is that fear is part of our humanness, our very existence. Without fear, I dare say that many of us would not have survived thus far. There's a reason to fear poisonous snakes. You get what I mean here? Fear serves a purpose. It heightens our senses as well as helping us to realize the value of love. Fear, just like love, is all about our behavior around it. Pema Chodron says that fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. We don't get, she says, that fear is our friend. Instead, we freak out when there's even the merest hint of fear, which only makes our situation worse. And then everything falls apart and we run out of options for escape. This is an important moment because this crisis isn't just a test, it's a healing. We think we can solve the problem, only in reality we can't. And the sooner we learn that, the sooner we'll feel better. So she invites us to think about this, that for the most part, things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. They come together and they fall apart. And they come together again and again and again, and they fall apart again and again and again, just like that. The healing, you see, comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen in our lives. Room for grief, room for release, room for misery, for joy, for fear, and for love. The good and the not so good news is that nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. Oh. Oh, hold me for a moment. Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. If we spiritually bypass fear and constantly strive for love with blinders on, we miss all that hides in the shadows of the fear we are not willing to acknowledge. And we all know, if we don't acknowledge something, it's going to stay. It's going to stay in the shadows until we do. If we shut this down and refuse to look at fear, then we shut down the openness to examine what is not working and how we can work with it. How many times in our lives have we had great fear, but decided to work with it and walk through it? I think it was Franklin Roosevelt that said, all we have to fear is fear itself. If we turn away or run from acknowledging it, what happens is we miss an opportunity for expansion in our lives. So the path really is to acknowledge fear, but to know it's not all of who we are. You know, we have an acronym for fear in 12-step. There's two, actually. One I can say and one I cannot. Come on. But the one I can say is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. As I said before, John Lennon said, when we reside in fear, everything contracts on all levels. And what we mean by all levels is physical, emotional, and energetic. So what happens is we start operating from a state of fear instead of a state of love. We don't work with fear, we operate from it. And so all our decisions and everything we do in life then become fear-based. And so in this state of contraction, what happens is if we're making all our decisions and operating everything from fear, we begin to pull inward and shut down. The deal is we need both fear and love, and they do coexist, but as we evolve, and that's the key, as we learn, as we accept fear, then what happens, as I said before, is we begin to change and work with it, to move through it with more trust and awareness. How many times have you heard someone who loves you say, "You will get through this. This is only a moment in time. You will get through this. You will get through this." And so you don't need to shut down. You need to open up. All right, fear. Come on, take your best shot. I got you. I know what's happening. It is important that we understand this because it's part of our journey as human beings. You know, perhaps you can think about it like a riptide. You know, I was thinking about this. I'm not a very good swimmer. In fact, my ex-husband said that I was the only person he ever saw walk on water because I was so terrified of water. All I wanted to do was get to the shore. Anyway, perhaps you can think about it like a riptide. And a riptide, for those individuals who may not know, are these long, narrow bands of water that flow quickly, and I mean very quickly, from the shore. And swimming in one of these, they almost seem calm at first, stretches of water, which usually form in between crashing waves, can pull swimmers away from the shore very rapidly. And they are extremely dangerous. But if we think about a riptide of fear, the way to move out of fear is not to swim against it, but to relax and swim with it. And keep in mind that love is not the shoreline. Love is a place where we are free from danger and can feel completely safe. But love is instead the ocean and the air and the earth. We are immersed in it all the time, whether we know it or not. Even when we are in the middle of a rip, we are held by love. It hasn't abandoned us. And all we need to do is surrender and go with the movement until it dissipates and we are free to swim back to the shore. Back to the truth of who we are, the living expression and breath of the one source. In this way, we need not conquer fear or spiritually bypass it, try and banish it or outgrow it. Instead, we can learn to feel it, ask it to show us what is trying to teach us or what it's trying to teach us or what is not working in our lives, and then, and only then, surrender to the expansive universe of love. False evidence appearing real. Let's go into prayer. Taking a deep breath in. Knowing that right here and right now, in this expansion of love, claiming and knowing that there is only one, there's only one source of all. From the invisible to the visible. All that is, all that ever was, and all that shall ever be. And I know this one source as that which creates out of itself every minute, every second of every day, only what is like itself. The very breath that I breathe. The very life that I live. Knowing that this expansion, this incredible beauty and love and wholeness and abundance and prosperity, all of this is who I am and who this community is, and all of those who come through our doors or who are online or who are yet to come. The radiance and beauty of the truth. How amazing that is, to stand in the power of love and to stand in the power and knowingness that I am not afraid. Because I know the truth of who I am, and the fear that may represent itself to me is my humanness expanding into that greater expression of what is calling me deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I know right here and right now, from that place of truth where I lie upon the altar, speaking this word for this community, I know that there is an action taking place right now simply because I am speaking this word. And that all who are within the sound of my voice are absolutely standing in the power and the presence of the one as the very life that God is. And so, therefore, anyone who may be experiencing anything right now that is not something that is raising the vibration, the holiness of who they are, that is something being called for to expand into the radiance of life. I know that God is not a delay or denial, or perhaps God is delayed in this moment, but there is no denial because Spirit comes when we are ready. And so I declare and know that as I open up all, because we're one. There's no separation. And so as I walk through any fear that I may have, I companion those who are also walking through fear. I know that wholeness cannot be denied, that every cell and tissue and fiber and joint and muscle and organ works together every day in every way to sustain and maintain this wholeness for each and every one and for this community as we too expand, as we hold the world in love, especially those in the Ukraine, supporting and sustaining their love and their lives, because we are connected in and through and as the livingness of spirit. So we are connected in and through and as each and every soul in the Ukraine. And so for this truth and so much more, knowing that love is right where we are, I give thanks. I give thanks to be here and to speak this word and to stand in the power and the presence of the one breath for all. And it is through a grateful heart that I release this prayer into the perfect universal law, knowing that the law always says yes. It always says yes. It always says yes. Standing in the power of yes, the place of grace. This prayer is done. I leave it knowing it is so. Shalom. Hamdalela Ashe Namaste. Amen. And so it is.